In the thriller 56 Days by Katherine Ryan Howard, the murder is designed to look like a perfect accident. It is subtle, carefully planned, and almost impossible for investigators to prove. But when the story was adapted for television, that clever crime disappears. Instead, the show features a body dissolving in a bathtub that literally crashed through the floor. And strangely, that is only the first thing the adaptation completely changed. At first glance, the show seems like a faithful version of the book. Same characters, same dark secrets, same central mystery. But when you start comparing the details, something strange happens. The adaptation quietly changes the murder, the villain, the motivation, and even the ending. And by the time the story finishes, it almost feels like a completely different thriller. To understand why, we have to start with the biggest change of all: the murder. In the book, the crime is designed to look like a tragic accident. The death takes place in an icy, underwater scenario carefully constructed so investigators would almost certainly believe it was accidental. That is what makes the mystery so clever. The crime does not look like murder at all, but the show abandons that idea completely. Instead, the characters attempt to dissolve a body in a bathtub using chemicals. But the strangest part is not the method. It is who the victim is. In the novel, the person who eventually dies is Oliver. But the show changes this. The body discovered in the bathtub belongs to Dan, Oliver's therapist. That might sound like a small difference, but it actually forces the entire story to change. Because in the book, the therapist barely matters, and in the show, he becomes something completely different. In the novel, the therapist appears briefly during a Zoom therapy session. His role is simple. He shows that Oliver is attempting psychological rehabilitation. That is it. He is essentially a background character. But the show reinvents him entirely. Dan discovers Oliver's violent past and begins blackmailing the family, forcing them to continue paying for therapy that is not helping. Instead of being a minor character, he becomes someone manipulating the situation for money. And eventually he becomes the murder victim. But the therapist is not the only character the adaptation rewrites. The biggest change might actually be Sarah. In the book, Sarah enters Oliver's life for a deeply personal reason. Her brother was murdered and she believes Oliver may be responsible. At the same time, her mother is slowly losing her memory to dementia. And Sarah wants to uncover the truth before her mother forgets everything. Her investigation is driven by grief and the need for closure. The show removes much of that emotional motivation. Instead, Sarah becomes primarily motivated by money. She targets Oliver largely because she believes she can steal from him, which makes her character far more calculating. And this change also affects how she investigates him, because Sarah keeps something extremely risky. Both versions include one small detail that turns out to be incredibly important. Sarah keeps a notebook. Inside, she writes down everything she learns about Oliver. Every suspicion, every clue, every theory. In the book, it is simply part of her investigation. But keeping written evidence like that is dangerous, because if someone ever finds it, the entire plan could collapse. And in the show, that is exactly what happens. Oliver eventually finds the notebook, exposing everything Sarah was trying to hide. And once that happens, the story begins moving toward a completely different ending. The show also introduces a strange strategy after the murder. Instead of cleaning the crime scene perfectly, the characters intentionally leave extra evidence behind. Their idea is that overwhelming investigators with too many clues might create confusion and buy them time. It is a chaotic strategy, and it is very different from the novel's carefully designed crime. But all of these changes are leading toward the biggest difference of all: the ending. In the book, Sarah eventually discovers the truth. Oliver was the killer. And once she realizes this, she kills Oliver. The mystery closes with justice served. But the show chooses a very different conclusion. Instead of dying, Oliver survives. Both he and Sarah escape the investigation. And the final scene reveals them living together on a tropical island. But there is one final twist. They now have a baby together. Instead of ending the story, the show leaves the door open for a second season. When you look at all these changes together, a pattern begins to appear. The book is a mystery about uncovering the truth behind a hidden crime. Everything builds towards solving it, but the show is not trying to solve the mystery at all. Instead, it turns the story into something darker, a thriller about two dangerous people learning to survive together. And that is why the adaptation had to change the crime itself. The book needed a perfect accident, but the show needed a messy, dramatic murder that could keep the story going. It was not just adapting the book. It was building a completely different kind of story.